You're listening to Mic Drop Moments, a podcast brought to you each week with me, your host, Sandra Garlick. During the podcast, I invite guests to share their amazing stories, knowledge and top tips, including their mic drop moments, especially for you. I also share my learning and inspiration about life, business growth and visibility. I'm delighted to bring the Mic Drop Moments podcast to you each week to inspire and motivate you to achieve. Enjoy the podcast and don't forget to leave a review. Mic Drop Moments is sponsored by Grow Radio. Want to launch your own podcast? Grow Radio are here to help. Grow Radio has launched and supported countless podcasts, and they'd love to do the same for you. Just hit record and they'll handle the rest. No editing stress, no technical faff, just a great podcast released when you want. Need a little extra support? Grow Radio's workshops and courses make getting started easy. Let's bring your podcast to life. Message Grow Radio on social media. Let's make this happen. Welcome to Mic Drop Moments and to my final episode of 2025. I don't know where the year has gone, but I thought I'd come in and do this episode and do a bit of a reflection and look ahead, which I always do at the end of the year. So welcome back to the podcast. Another solo episode for you. I've done quite a few solo episodes recently, but don't worry, I've got some guests all lined up for 2026. So as I said, this is my final episode of 2025. There will be a special bonus episode on New Year's Day, but I'll tell you more about that at the end. And I want to slow things down a little bit today as we head towards the end of the year. And there's been a lot of noise about planning and goal setting and choosing a word for 2026. Don't worry, I have one. I'll share it with you. And having everything neatly mapped out for January. And to be quite honest, I don't think that's the best place to start. And it's not where I start either. So today I'm going to do two things. I want to reflect on what 2025 has taught me. Well, I'm just going to reflect on a tiny bit of what 2025 has taught me. And then I want to share some grounded practical ways that you can start thinking about your strategy for 2026 and getting rid of that overwhelm. Because I think sometimes if you look at the whole year as a whole, then you don't know where to start. And you think, oh my God, I want to do so much, but I just don't know how to refine it really and what order to do it. So this isn't about doing more. This is about doing more of what matters. So I'm not going to give you a whole load of a long list, to-do list, because that's not what you want. If you're listening to this at Twixtmas, then you might have a bit of downtime. So it might be a good time to snuggle up and rather than watching yet another Christmas movie, because obviously we put a stop on them now, you can actually start strategizing for 2026. But before we talk about 2026, we need to talk about 2025 because I don't believe strategy starts with planning. I believe strategy starts with reflection, and you need to look back before you can go forward. And this year, for me especially, has been really full, but it has been really noisy out there. It's been a very unusual year, especially if you're running an online business. So I've had moments of pride, I've had moments of alignment, and moments of real joy. There've also been some moments where I've felt completely stretched, exhausted, almost burnt out and forced to stop and reassess. You know, if you're listening in October, I actually made myself ill, and I'll come on to that in a minute. But one of my biggest moments for the year came in May at the Woman Who Achieves Awards. And it was the 10th anniversary. So it was a special event with a room of 300 plus women in business and men, of course. And if I'm being completely honest, I was about to throw in the towel. I had my speech prepared. My son was the only one that knew. My son comes and helps me on the day. And I was there to celebrate the milestone and to end it all, really. That was going to be my last ever awards. And I was all ready to welcome everybody and then to make that announcement to say, basically, welcome to the 10th anniversary of the Woman Who Achieves Awards and the very last Woman Who Achieves Awards. And I just felt it was right at that moment to close the chapter. And the thing was, these awards have been going, when I started these awards, there was nothing like it out there. And now the market is flooded with awards, and some not so very good ones either. And I just felt I was drowning in awards. There was just another award and another award and another award. And everyone just seems to be starting awards. And mine are very special, I believe, and they're quite unique. And if you want to know more about the awards, visit the awards page, and they will be going live on the 1st of January. So I had my speech prepared. And as I said, I felt this was the moment to close that particular chapter. But my Let's Get Visible Accelerate Academy members had other ideas, and I was completely oblivious. Now, I am one of these people that really, really focuses on attention to detail. So how they got this past me, I will never know. And that's my little doggy barking in the background. But anyway, he wants to get in on the act as well. But as I say, led by the wonderful Michelle Levers, they completely blindsided me. And as I was waiting behind stage to do my walk-up, Michelle was going to introduce me to stage, my walk-up music would come on, and I'd go out and I'd give this speech, this opening welcome. And suddenly I could hear this video playing, and my son came and got me, who apparently was in on it, and took me out to the side stage. And I was watching this video of testimonials and the impact that working with me had had on each of these individuals by being a member of the academy. And it absolutely blew me away. And then they called me up on stage and presented me with my own certificate and my own glass award, which said the woman who started it all. And for once in my life, I was absolutely speechless. Literally, I didn't know what to say. And I ended up, I think, going off stage and sort of welcoming people. And that was it, really. So I had no opening speech. I had nothing to give. And I looked round at the sea of faces and I thought, I can't do this. I can't end this. It's only just beginning. So I had no idea of the impact that my academy, my work, the work I was delivering, the constant lives and inspiration and opportunities I create had on those people. And in that moment, everything shifted for me. So it reminded me that when you're in the day-to-day, you don't always see the impact and the ripple effect of the work you are doing. And you don't always see the difference you're making. And not until you stop and somebody actually tells you that you realise that you actually are making a difference. And that moment was so emotional for me. I almost cried, and I never cry in public. It was very grounding and incredibly humbling. So thank you to Michelle and to everybody who created that moment, because actually that was the moment everything started to change for me, and things really started to up level and go in a different, almost accelerated direction for myself. I've been so busy encouraging everybody else, I'd neglected to work on myself. So that's my first piece of reflection. I'm briefly interrupting this podcast to tell you about the Woman Who Achieves Awards 2026. Entries are now open until midnight on Sunday, the 15th of February. Just visit womanwho.co.uk/awards for all the information. This is your opportunity to share your story, your achievements, and your goals and aspirations for the future. Plus, entering awards is a fantastic way to boost your visibility in 2026. And this year, there are some brand new questions to really give you value by going through the entry process. It's a huge reflection piece. There are also some great sponsorship opportunities available. Now back to the podcast. And then later in the year, my second piece is I got it completely wrong. So I decided that my last quarter of 2025 was going to be all about visibility. Now, I've been working on visibility and growing my audience throughout 2025, and it started on the 1st of January when I did my Let's Get Visible 90-day visibility sprint, and I've done it every quarter throughout the year. And if you're interested in that, I've got a bundle that you can grab for that low cost daily prompts. And I started doing that, and I've grown probably my social audience by around, across the board, by around 20 or 30,000. I can't remember. I think it's nearly 30,000. But the thing is, that was it. I decided to really hone in for the last quarter, and I decided to be visibility led. So as I said, audience growth had been the focus, but my plan during that last quarter was to speak, to sponsor and exhibit. So I booked a lot of events. Now I also booked to attend a lot of events. And I think when I worked it out, it was 20 events over 15 weeks. And I thought so it was just slightly over the 90 days. I thought that's doable because it's only one and a half events a week, not even that. But what I hadn't realised was there were chunks of my diary where they all came at once. And I think over a 10-day period, I had 6 events. So it all looked good, it all aligned on paper, but the problem was it was just compacted and there was no breathing space, there was no recovery time, there was no margin, and I literally burnt out. In fact, I had 3 viruses in the space of 6 weeks. I had to cancel 4 events. I didn't cancel the speaking engagements. I didn't cancel the exhibitor spots, although I nearly cancelled one. And if I could have got a refund on my hotel, I would have cancelled it. And then I didn't cancel anything I was sponsoring, but I did cancel 4 events I'd planned to attend. And as I said, 3 bouts of the lurgy, I was just so run down. And then to cap it all, I had booked a holiday in there, but I was too ill to travel. I woke up on the day I was supposed to travel down to Luton Airport and I booked a hotel. I couldn't physically get out of bed and get dressed, let alone drive to a hotel, let alone fly to Italy. And it was just my body saying, that's enough. So when I get it wrong, I say so. I'm very transparent, but I'm going to take that learning, I'm going to own it, and I'm going to plan differently next time, because I always take the learning from the lesson. And I always think, right, what went well, what didn't go quite so well, and make sure that I learn from it. Because a strategy that looks great on paper but ignores your capacity, your health, your downtime, your energy, that's not a strategy, that's a warning sign. So that is my big learning. So 2 big pieces of learning really on reflection, and there's loads more, but I haven't got time to tell you right now. But 2 big pieces of learning was the learning in May. Don't always think you're doing the right thing, because you need to see what impact you're creating. And then obviously planning, but planning properly, and planning downtime. I always talk about buffer time. You know, when I plan back-to-back Zoom meetings, there's buffer time in between every single one. And I only do delivery on 3 days a week because I need that buffer time either side. Why didn't I do it with events? I don't know. But anyway, that's the learning. So I said strategy isn't about doing more. And this is where I see a lot of people struggling. We think strategy is about adding more offers, more events, more content, more visibility, more, doing more. It's not. It's about making tough decisions. It's about knowing what to do more of and what to let go of. So it's about knowing what you're focusing on, and just as importantly, what you're not doing, because some things you're not doing, you may need to implement. So I've followed strategies in the past that looked perfect but didn't fit around my life and around that moment. So as I say, when you plan, it might look good on paper, but actually what will happen if you're ill or you have a family emergency? So I've been learning that over the years as well. Your strategy has to fit around you, your capacity, your life, your energy, and the seasons of the year as well, because I don't perform as well in the winter, although I try very hard. But during the summer, I'm at my most optimized. So, you know yourself, or get to know yourself if you don't. But it's not about doing more. So let's look at creating your strategy for 2026. And here's a simple framework that I use. And it's not to lock everything in, it's just to it's to create clarity and to give you some thoughts to start with, really. And as I say, I start with reflection, not my goals. So before you think about your targets or plans, ask yourself, what do I want more of in 2026? What do I want less of? And what am I no longer willing to tolerate? And that's putting the boundaries in there. And I talked about boundaries in last week's episode, but also I have some huge boundaries. And it's all about honesty. Choose one main focus, not 5, just one. I only focus on one thing at a time, and during each 90-day period. So whether that's growth, connection, visibility, speaking, simplicity, simplifying everything down, whatever it is, everything else should support that focus. And as I said, my October, November, December focus was visibility, and I decided to do that around speaking, sponsorship, exhibiting, but I have different focuses each quarter. And then build around connection, not just visibility. I've been banging on that I think connection is going to be the key for 2026, and that's why I'm entering into new rooms, doing new things, speaking to new people, making new connections. And visibility matters, but visibility without connection doesn't last. It's okay saying, oh, I've got X number of followers, but if they're not connecting with you, then where is it leading to? And some of the most meaningful growth I've experienced, especially since May really, has come through building relationships, having great conversations, a community around me. And that's not just about being seen, that's about being heard, that's about engaging, that's about communicating, about connecting and building those relationships. Think about how you want people to feel when they interact with you. And the next one is do fewer things better. Now, I'll talk about my words of the year towards the end, but yeah, refinement is a strategy. So actually refining things, doing fewer things. So I've built in efficiency, I've built in automation, not to the extent where I no longer connect, but I've built in some efficiencies into my business and also outsourced a lot as well. Doing fewer things well creates more impact than doing lots of things and just getting them half done. You don't need more ideas, or if you do have them, capture them, leave them, come back to them later, but you need clear ideas. And I always leave my ideas, revisit them, and then put a line through the ones that don't work, or diarise them in for the future, but you can't do everything now. And the last one is leave white space on purpose. White space isn't wasted time. So I'm starting to leave white space in my diary in 2026. And what I have done is blocked out recovery time after I attend an event, pure white space for recovery. And that's thinking time, it's creating time, it's recovery time, as I said. So if your 2026 plan doesn't include space or that buffer time or that recovery time, it's incomplete. Now, I chose a word for 2025, and my word was simplify. And I started the year really well. And somewhere along the way, I forgot it, and things crept in, opportunities appeared, and complexity followed, and that started to get bogged down. So later in the year, I really had to rein myself in. And I think October was a huge wake-up call for me. Simplifying wasn't about doing less for the sake of it. It was about creating clarity and doing that refinement piece. And now that clarity is there, I'm not interested in doing more. What I'm doing is amplifying what already works. So it may be no surprise to you that my closing word, my word for 2026 is amplify. So I'm not creating more, I'm just amplifying what I've already got. I'm going deeper, I'm strengthening, not stretching, and I'm building momentum rather than starting again. So simplify gave me the space, and now it's time to amplify what I've created. So as we close out 2025, I'm going to leave you with this question. If you looked ahead to the end of 2026, what would you be looking back on and reflecting on? What do you think would be different this time next year? And what one decision could you make right now that would move you closer to that end reflection of 2026? You don't need all the answers right now, but you just need to start being intentional and having a think about where do you want to be in 12 months' time and what do you want to be reflecting back on. So I'd like to say a huge thank you for listening to Mic Drop Moments this year. I'm incredibly grateful you're here. And as I say, I will be back with a very special episode on New Year's Day. In fact, it's my 200th episode of Mic Drop Moments. I can't believe that we're 200 episodes in. And I will keep on creating because this podcast isn't going anywhere. So if you know somebody who should be listening to this podcast each week, then send them the link and ask them to subscribe. And I'm just really grateful to you showing up, to listening in, and I'd love to hear what you think of this week's episode. Happy New Year. Thank you for listening to the Mic Drop Moments podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Join me next week for more inspiration, learning, and top tips. Want to work with me on your business growth and strategy, speaking, or simply growing your audience? Just get in touch. Visit womanwho.co.uk to find out how you can start your speaking and visibility journey, or even feature on a future podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss next week's podcast. And if there are any topics you would like to hear, just get in touch with me, your host, Sandra Garlick.